Number 11, Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Education and asks, does she stand by all of her decisions as Minister of Education? If not, which, if any, particular decisions does she now regret?
Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, yes, in the circumstances and with the advice received at the time.
Supplementary question. Mr. Speaker, supplementary question to the Minister. Does she stand by her statement yesterday that she was not advised that the Ministry of Education was considering terminating its contract with Talent 2 due to failure to deliver on key milestones? If so, why?
Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, the question in fact yesterday talked about within 2 weeks of the final decision. I was aware that during the course of consideration there were times where meeting the milestones were questioned, but when the proposition to approve the contract was made, it was made with all the advice that the key milestones had been met or largely met and that we should proceed.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. If the Minister was in fact aware that the Ministry of Education had considered terminating the contract with Talent 2 several times, that several milestones had repeatedly been missed in the development of the NovaPay system, why did she sign off on the decision to go live with the new system?
Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, I think that Hansard will make it clear that I said that there were, over the process, the long process, which, by the way, includes 7 years, of which the contract, including which the contract was signed by Labour Ministers of Education. We went live because we were in the balance of the circumstances, the opportunity and risk. It was the best advice at the time.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Supplementary to the Minister. When she signed off the implementation of NovaPay, was she aware that the previous contingency arrangement with Datacom would expire before NovaPay actually went live? If so, why didn't she ask for the contingency to be extended until NovaPay implementation had been successfully completed?
Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, consideration was indeed given to Datacom, and it had its own risks, and on the balance of both cost and overall risk, the decision that we took was to go with NovaPay.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, that doesn't actually address the question I asked. Now, I'm aware the Minister probably didn't hear because of the noise her colleagues were making, but it doesn't address the question that I asked.
It was very hard to hear the question. I think possibly the Minister was challenged in hearing the question herself. I invite the member to ask the question again. I'd be grateful for less interjections so we can hear the question and then the answer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When she signed off the implementation of NovaPay, was she aware that the previous contingency arrangement with Datacom would expire before NovaPay actually went live? If so, why didn't she ask for the contingency to be extended until NovaPay implementation had been successfully completed?
Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, officials' advice comparing both the costs and overall risks of maintaining Datacom and proceeding to NovaPay, on balance, the advice given and taken was that we should proceed with NovaPay.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. Did she take to Cabinet the decision to abandon having the existing and new payroll systems run in parallel as a risk mitigation contingency measure? If not, why not?
Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, I took, well, I don't have absolutely every detail available to me now, but I am happy to do that. I did take the paper to Cabinet recommending that we should proceed.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Point of order, Mr. Speaker. That wasn't actually the question that I asked.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The question, well, I'll invite the member to ask the question again rather than me litigate it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Did she take to Cabinet the decision to abandon having the existing and new payroll systems run in parallel as a risk mitigation contingency measure? If not, why not?
Mr. Speaker, I took to Cabinet a paper proposing that in the overall balance of consideration that we proceed with NovaPay.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, once again, that didn't actually address the question that I asked. The question was, she could basically say she took a paper to Cabinet recommending any number of things, but the question was actually quite specific about what recommendations she took to Cabinet was, or whether she recommended a specific thing to Cabinet, she didn't address that.
Can the Minister assist the House by simply answering the question as to whether the paper she took proposed to continue with a standby with Datacom or not? Honourable Hiki Parata.
Mr Speaker, I don't have the Cabinet paper with me and I don't have that detail, but a full ministerial inquiry has been organised, which will provide all of that detail. Thank you.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question.
Mr Speaker, did Cabinet at any stage rescind the original decision to have the existing and the new payroll systems run in parallel until the new system was adequately operating?
Honourable Hiki Parata.
Well, evidently that is the case. We have run NovaPay. We now have a ministerial inquiry that is going to look at all the detail that the member is seeking and that we are just as interested in having available.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Mr Speaker, is the Minister confirming for the House that Cabinet rescinded its decision to have the new payroll system and the existing payroll system operating in parallel as a contingency measure until the new system was running effectively?
Honourable Hiki Parata.
Mr Speaker, no. I am saying I don't have that specific detail, so I cannot confirm that, but the ministerial inquiry will be able to do so.
Supplementary question, Mr
Supplementary
Speaker.
question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does she now regret signing off the implementation of NovaPay, given the taxpayer is now having to fork out an extra $5 million to prop up the problems within the system, when all of the problems could have been avoided if she had assured the contingencies that were originally put in place and the development milestones were actually reached before the implementation was approved?
Honourable Hiki Parata.
Well, Mr Speaker, I can say we regret inheriting the decision of that previous Labor government and upon which that member advised, and I think that we will leave the ministerial inquiry to look into these matters.
Question number 12, Melissa Lee.